And it is the Saturday Coffee Klatch with Heather Lofthouse and yours truly, Robert Reich. And Heather, we're doing a special one this week because of Thanksgiving. We thought it would be really useful and maybe even inspiring. Is that too strong a word? to talk, even though it's darkening times, and even though Trump is in control of everything, and these nominees are just nuts, we thought it might be nice to talk about silver linings, right? I mean, what is it we are
deep.
what is it that we are thankful for, and what do we want to express gratitude for politically?
I'm leaving this class. I'm done.
Is there
I'm out?
Wait a minute! I don't leave. There are silver linings.
No, there aren't.
I want to start with my silver lining.
Yes,
the big
please.
silver lining. This is this is from the notion that when you hit bottom, there's no place to go but up. And I think the Democratic Party has just about hit bottom. Certainly the National Democratic Party. And I think that this is an opportunity for Democrats to make major changes. No party, in fact, no individual makes major changes unless they are forced to make it.
Yep.
And Democrats will now be forced to become the party that it should have been all along.
It's so dire.
The party of working people, the party that focuses on the gaping inequality that is becoming worse and worse.
But you say it will be forced. How is it going to be forced? By we the people? By their moral consciences?
But no, because you can't continue to pretend that the Democratic Party is on the right track. Because it's now become the party of the college educated, which are only 38 to 40% of America, and the working people without college degrees are increasingly going to the Republican Party because there's no alternative, because the Democrats have not reached out to them. So my silver lining, Heather, you look very convinced.
Yeah, I'm feeling
My silver
convinced.
lining is that the Democrats understand they have no place to go except in the direction they should have been going all the way along.
No, of
back
course.
to the roots, back to Franklin D. Roosevelt, back to the old Democratic coalition.
But what does that mean more specifically?
Specifically, it means
Messaging-wise.
Well, it means in terms of what Democrats stand for. It's economic populism. It's taking on the big corporations. It's taking on wealthy individuals who have abused their wealth by pouring it into politics. It's saying and effectuating a notion that paid leave is very important. That people want a higher minimum wage, not just the people with the minimum wage, but people generally think that's the fair thing to do. That families need, child care and elder care, and this is kitchen table economics.
Right.
And it is time for the Democrats to return to kitchen table economics. So they're going to do it.
Done. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at some specific wins that we can pull from this past November. I mean, there is interesting stuff on the ground, especially in red states. So that's what I'd like to focus on.
No, but this fits in, because if the red states, if even in red states we're seeing some examples moving toward either economic populism or kind of the direction of the democracy ought to be moving in, this shows and should show the Democratic Party and Democrats in general that there are opportunities here that they should.
What about people who say, "Oh, Bob, we have to be safe. Let's stay let's not get too rogue, let's not go too off into populist left land. Let's really get a little closer. Let's just stay in the center lane and see what the Republicans have done. If that's what people want, let's be a little closer."
Center lane. There's no center lane. Heather.
Love riling you up with
wait
that.
a minute. I would just want to say in 1994. No, yes, 1994. I mean, it seems like ages ago, but the Democrats lost both the House and the Senate. And what did the political class say? Well, the Democrats need to move to the right. Move to the right. Right now, how do you move to the right? I mean, the right is now basically authoritarian fascism.
Yep.
Do you want to move to the right? Do you want to compromise with authoritarian fascism? No, there's no compromising with the Trump view or the Trump wing or the Trump Republican Party. There is an opportunity here for Democrats to define what it means to be a political party representing working people,
And
average working
It
people.
feels like you want them to be assertive. Is that part
Am
of
I
it?
being a little bit too assertive?
No.
I mean, look, you started to talk about the states, okay?
Oh,
Now,
let's get into it. What,
okay.
Can we talk first about where the votes are still being tallied?
Yeah.
We're in whatever month it is. Can't remember.
This is another reason to be optimistic.
Here we go.
No, I'm not being facetious
know.
now.
Let's go.
I mean, for example, Kamala Harris, the latest data we have show that she got 74.6 million votes. 74.6
And
million.
we're still counting.
Still counting, relative to Trump's 77 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now that is a difference. She lost. Okay, here's the thing that is not being talked about: the non-voters, people who did not even vote. How many of them are there? Well, remember, Kamala Harris got 74.6 million. Trump got 77 million. There were 85.9 million people who did not even vote.
The biggest party.
The party of non-voters.
Yeah.
It's huge. This is an opportunity. I want to talk about opportunities today. This is a huge opportunity
Right.
for the Democrats to
I know.
peel off some of the non-voters, to get the non-voters charged up.
And the important thing about that number is it was not a mandate, right? It is not the vast majority of Americans have come out for Trump. I know.
There's no mandate at all.
Right.
I mean, when you have more people who did not vote than voted for Trump or for Kamala Harris, you don't have a mandate. What you are seeing is an electorate that is completely cynical or basically had to choose. Many people thought between, a jerk and somebody, Kamala Harris, who they didn't know or didn't expect was going to be on their side.
Right.
So if you have
I
to...
still hate that, didn't know, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, she did have only 3 months.
No, I know.
Let's be clear about this. I mean, I know it's been 3.5 weeks since the election.
That's it?
It seems like forever. But back to your point, in terms of what happened at the state level.
Well, yeah, there's some good ones.
Well, voters in Arizona, Missouri, Montana, and Nevada, they voted to protect reproductive rights. Now, these are all red states. They voted to protect reproductive rights. Most of them puts the reproductive rights directly into their state constitutions as a result of
Talk about a mandate.
the vote
Yep.
3.5 weeks ago. I didn't, until I actually looked very carefully at these numbers, I didn't see that the red states had so much what we call left, right. It's not left versus right. That's the point. It's not left versus right anymore. It's authoritarian fascism versus the people.
Right. Okay, so blue states also did, but it's important to mention the red states, and then Florida, of course.
Well, Florida, you didn't get up to the 60%, but you did have 57%
Right.
who wanted to protect reproductive rights
Right.
in Florida. And the reason for the 60%, the state requires that you get to 60% if you're going to have certain kinds of measures passed.
So this is local labs of democracy where things are working, progressive populism is at play, or, people who care about humanity, women. Let's keep going. Can we talk about workers' rights?
Laboratories of democracy, by the way, you know who came up with that phrase?
I forget who.
Louis Brandeis.
Oh, here we go.
Who?
Any chance to plug Louis Brandeis over here?
Who said, or is reputed to have said, that America has a choice. We can either have great wealth in the hands of a few or a democracy, but we can't have both.
Yep.
Great jurist.
Great jurist and laboratories of democracy. Okay, workers' rights. This is a good one. You're a former Secretary of Labor.
Yes.
So people are coming out and voting and saying we need a higher minimum wage, we need paid sick leave, and again, in purple states.
And red states.
And red states. Purple areas.
Well, I think this is also proves the point. In a way, I mean, if there is so much in red states, so much interest in
Right.
raising the minimum wage and also providing paid family leave, what states do you know?
Yes, Alaska, ballot measure that increased the minimum wage to 15 and required paid sick leave and banned union busting captive audience meetings, which you know a thing or two
And this
about.
is all in Alaska.
Yep, and
Alaska
then-
is considered to be a red state.
Okay, Missouri.
Missouri.
Well, some people say.
Isn't the southern part of Missouri?
I don't know, actually. And I apologize to any Missourians that we have
want
offended.
can you let us know when you have it from Missouri? Missouri,
And then Nebraska. Did I
Nebraska,
say
Nebraska. Yeah.
They passed a measure requiring businesses to offer paid sick leave again. Is this a pattern? I mean, seems like this is a good thing.
I find this fascinating because paid sick leave is something that the Democrats should be screaming about. All right? I mean, we caught up with the rest of the advanced world in 1994 in terms of providing 12 weeks of unpaid
I know.
family leave. And then the rest of the world moved to paid leave, and we just sat there.
Stagnant.
I mean, America could not do anything because the biggest corporations lobbied against paid leave. They didn't want to provide their employees paid leave. Well, the Democrats, here is something to do. Here is something that we can see in the red states they want.
I know. And also, I mean, so corporations is what we used to say, and we're still saying it, but billionaires now. So right now, fighting the NLRB, we have Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and
They're coming out of the woodwork. And that's the other part of my silver lining. Because this is smoking, this is smoking them out.
I know.
You see, I mean, they're coming out because they're feeling, well, we're now in charge, and so all these billionaires who normally under Democratic administrations, under the Biden administration, and I remember under Obama and under Clinton, they kind of kept themselves a little bit quiet. Even when they got successful at lobbying for what they wanted, tax cuts and everything else, they just didn't gloat about it. But now they're beating their chests and they're saying, great for us.
But so the Democratic Party has to be louder than that barrage and bombardment.
Well,
and
louder, but
bravado.
also, here's the hard thing. The Democratic Party has got to stop being dependent on the billionaire class and on big corporations for donations. Can they do that?
We'll see. And
Well,
the next DNC chair,
They have to.
we'll see.
They
I mean,
have
they
to.
have to.
They have to.
absolutely have to.
I mean,
This was your point from the top of our coffee.
Well, this is basic. Follow the money, follow the money. And what we're going to see, I guarantee, and here's the third part of my
Silver lining.
silver lining, is we're going to see the Trump administration overreach because there's no limit. Trump has basically both
Well,
chambers.
Matt Gaetz was the limit.
both
That's the only limit,
both
apparently.
both chambers of Congress and a tractable Supreme Court, and basically Trump is now putting these crazy people into his executive branch, and so you've got no constraint. And when Trump faces no constraint, and the billionaires backing Trump face no constraint, what happens, Heather? They overreach. Inevitably, they overreach. And they're going to overreach with tax cuts for the billionaire class, for corporations. They're going to overreach with tariffs, on.
Oh, yeah.
This, and it's going to cause people to be so angry and upset that I think there's going to be a great big response,
But we'll take notice of inequality.
And yes, the Democrats
Right?
have an opportunity to say, we are a party that is worried about inequality, and we are going to aim for shared prosperity. We are going to aim to include everybody.
Yeah, with real solutions.
With real
not
solutions.
Fake tariffs
Yeah.
or
Well,
real tariffs.
well, the tariffs are going to hurt people. And, you cut taxes, and what does that mean? You're going to have a larger budget deficit, which means what? More interest payments to
Right.
whom? To whom? When the budget deficit gets out of control,
It's not me.
the rest of us pay effectively on the bonds, the people who hold the borrowing, who hold the bondholders. And we have this fiction that they're all Chinese and Japanese, or no. The majority of the people who hold the debt of the United States are wealthy Americans.
Yep.
These are the same people, Heather, who used to be paying higher taxes
Right.
to support the government. Now they're lending the government money, and after Trump gets finished, increasing the debt by $4 trillion or $5 or $8 trillion, they are going to be even having to lend more money to the government, and that means the rest of us pay them Interest
I know,
payments.
but this is critical, and you've said it, we've said it so many times. It's so interesting. I do think people picture it as an overseas issue, or they don't see it in the same pocket. The cycle is going through the
Yes,
same
and the
pocket.
same thing. I mean, the same thing with all of this stock buybacks.
Yep.
I mean, the savings that corporations are making from laying people off. GM just laid off 1,000 people again. What happens to those savings? They go into stock buybacks, and what happens then? That's the purpose of the stock buyback, is to increase share prices.
Yep,
And the
CEO
top
pay.
the top 1% of Americans, the richest 1% of Americans, has 52% of all the shares of stock
I
owned
know,
by Americans.
and all these workers being so productive are not
They're
reaping
not
the benefits.
reaping the benefits of their productivity. That's what Democrats ought to be screaming about.
I know. So one other win around democracy was in Alaska, and a lot of Native communities came out and made this possible because it was only 664 or something votes. But ranked choice voting stays.
Now,
That's big.
that's big, and that's important, because that means that you have a groundswell for strengthening democracy.
Right. Good. Okay. That's.
So are you feeling
I mean, ish.
Gratitude-ish?
I'm the tude, emphasis on the tude. Okay, can we talk about school vouchers? Because this one, I worked in education for years. School vouchers, we know this, disproportionately benefit wealthy families. They take away, they siphon off students and funding, and public schools are hurt. So it is not a great policy choice.
public schools end up with the young kids who are hardest to teach because they are socioeconomically from the most difficult backgrounds, and that makes it very, very. It actually creates a two-tiered system of education. The Supreme Court in the 1950s said separate is not equal, but now we are, with vouchers, going into a separate kind of wealthy children system. And so several states rejected that.
Colorado,
Colorado.
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Yes.
Kentucky.
Yep. Yep. And it would have cost the states a lot of money.
Mitch McConnell, Kentucky, red state.
Right. And it would be interesting to delve into the messaging there, right? What really resonated with me was the saving money, because it's a lot of money that would have gone, to these students.
You mean to the private schools?
To the outside of public schools, so broadly defined. Nebraska repealed a state law that allowed the state to spend up to $10 million a year on tuition subsidies for private school students.
Kentucky, Nebraska,
I know.
Missouri. I mean, this is the heartland of red America, and what we're seeing bubble up is all of these.
Pay attention.
I mean,
Okay.
it's important.
And then what we want to look at, I think this is so interesting. So this is an example of how we have to pay attention to the long game. And Republicans have been so savvy at all these different levels, thinking about 10 years out, 20 years out. I mean, in the Supreme Court, 30 years out, longer. But so in Wisconsin, you know this one, the 2010s were dire. There was a red wave, and people have been working hard since then to win statewide races that would make a difference in terms of the Wisconsin State Supreme Court.
Yes.
And it was flipped.
And a lot of states have Supreme Courts that are voted upon. I mean, I'm not
Yes.
sure that's a very good idea. I mean, Mexico is now trying to do that,
Right.
and it kind of ensures a one-party state. But nevertheless, you have to do that if you want to do something that I think states have to do to strengthen their state democracies.
Right. And also drawing these legislative maps. I mean, the power that these state courts have is absolutely critical, and it makes a difference. And this was a long fight, and people stayed in it.
And you're talking about in terms of gerrymandering.
Wisconsin. Yeah, exactly.
And Wisconsin had a Republican gerrymandered map, and they flipped the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court newly flipped, it's not just Democrat. It's a matter of caring about the integrity of your voting system. And what that Wisconsin Supreme Court did is it approved a new map that was much less gerrymandered and much
Yep.
more accurate in terms of where people actually lived.
That's it. That's exactly it.
But that meant that the entire Wisconsin government
Yep. Well, I think they're on chart to flip both chambers. Yeah. So on a path. But this is a big deal. They're picking up seats. It's making a difference.
So this is
and it's Wisconsin. Back to your point.
But back to your point.
Oh, stop it! You start with your point.
Back to your point.
Okay, fine. Start
about
with
about the long game. I mean, this is all part of the long game. You've got to think about what moves are going to lead to additional opportunities, which lead to additional moves, so that you can make democracy work, so that you can provide reproductive rights, so that you can strengthen the workplace and workers' rights. I mean,
and if I may, I think the Dems could improve their long game.
I think. Can I write that down?
Yeah,
that's
please.
really, really impressive.
Yeah.
Dems improved the long game.
But big time, hello.
Heather, there's been no Democratic long game. I've been involved in Democratic politics since the mid-19th century, and there's no long game. It's always a little game around election time, or it's just the year or a year and a half before the election.
So now this authoritarian situation we're living in is going to light the fire. That's the silver lining.
That's part of the silver lining. Yes, it is going to. And
I like it.
And how was your
I'm
Thanksgiving?
giving you a hard time about this, but I am really grateful that you're saying it to us.
Well, I think this is the week to
Yep.
look at, how can we be grateful, even though the times are very, very bleak.
So grim. I know. There's a lot of grimness in the world.
Yeah.
So my Thanksgiving was good. I was with a family. Is that what you call family made up of friends?
Yes, but you have family too, so friends
I have
and family.
too. Yeah, but I wasn't with siblings and parents. I was with.
You don't have a sibling.
Oh, I've half siblings.
Oh, you have siblings. Sorry.
Sorry,
Sorry, this
guys.
is very personal. I don't
Yeah.
want to get
No, it's
into
fine.
these. Yes.
Yeah. So how about yours?
Oh, wonderful. One of my sons and my daughter-in-law, they came, and we had a wonderful time. Lovely time.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Okay, so
Well, this is part of this is really the essence of gratitude is friends and family and health.
and health and the little things, listening to music here and there, and I don't know, trying to find nano silver linings.
And also, it's hard for many families, the holidays. I'm talking about Thanksgiving through Christmas, because there are Trumpers in many families. Now, luckily, fortunately, here's a little personal silver lining. There are no Trumpers that I know of in my family.
Wow.
There are no
You're the
Trumpers in
one.
your family, are there?
Oh, I mean, big time.
Well, but the question is, how do you handle your Trumpers, family Trumpers, who you love because they're members of your family?
I know. Well, you have some good advice about that.
Yes.
Should we look back? You are hilarious, letting us force you to play this character that you do beautifully. Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob. Let's take a look.
Happy holidays to you and yours. Holidays with the family are great, but they can sometimes be complicated. Happy holidays, Uncle Bob. What's good about them? I'm paying too much in taxes to support poor people who are sitting on their duffs. Good old Uncle Bob. Sweet man. Wrong. Here's some suggestions to help answer the favorite arguments of the Uncle Bob in your holiday gathering. Actually, Uncle Bob, the top tax rate, which I assume you're paying, is just a little more than half what it was for 4 decades before 1981. And only a tiny percent of your taxes go to the poor. By the way, the poor are working harder than ever, often 60 or 70 hours a week in more than one job. But they aren't paying any income taxes. You see, he just wants to talk about income taxes. That's a trick. What you need to do is talk about the total tax burden. Actually, Uncle Bob, they're paying a higher share of their incomes than you are for Social Security, state sales taxes, property taxes, user fees, and tolls. Add all these up, and the entire bottom half of Americans is probably paying a higher tax rate than you pay. But if the government taxes people like me, the economy suffers because we're the job creators. Every holiday I hear about this job creator stuff. Even Uncle Bob, if he thinks about it, brilliant businessman I'm sure he is, knows that he only hires people when he has customers. Actually, Uncle Bob, the real job creators are the vast middle class and the poor, whose spending motivates companies to add jobs. Without customers, there'd be no jobs. That's the real economic problem. The wages of most people haven't gone anywhere for 35 years if you adjust for inflation. Most of the economy's gains have gone to the top 1%.
The problem is labor unions.
If they criticize unions, tie the decline of unions to what's happened to middle-class incomes. Actually, Uncle Bob, unions built the great American middle class of the 1950s and 60s, giving workers bargaining power to get a fair share of the economy's gains. But because union membership has plummeted from a third of all private sector workers then to fewer than 7% now, the median wage has been stagnant and the middle class has been shrinking.
So, I suppose you want to raise the minimum wage, too.
Be ready for this one.
That'll mean fewer jobs, because with a higher minimum wage, employers will substitute machines or send the jobs abroad rather than pay people more.
Actually, Uncle Bob, research shows a higher minimum wage creates more jobs because people spend most of their paychecks in the local economy, thereby fueling job growth. And it's also good for employers because it leads to more loyal and reliable employees and less turnover.
You know what you are? You're a socialist.
Once they start the ad hominem attacks, you've won. No, Uncle Bob, I'm just interested in facts, not labels. Don't choke on your apple pie, Uncle Bob. Or in the spirit of being hopeful around the holidays, this may happen. Name-calling will get you nowhere, Uncle Bob. You know, we have much more in common than it seems. You care about America. I care about America. We all want a stronger economy. We're all worried about money in politics. We want to leave a better world for our kids.
There it was.
You're a socialist.
I know, you're so good at it. But so I know this is kind of anti-silver lining. That was from 2015.
Yeah, and it really had a big effect in changing the public consciousness around these issues.
No, but it's such a, I mean, it's very well done and still relevant. But it is, the answers are good.
This is the long game, okay?
Again.
Heather,
Yeah.
Heather, you know, you just work at this stuff. I mean, we make videos, and it's public education, and, you know, I write books that nobody reads, and you just keep on,
That's not true.
You keep on
I had to
doing
read one in
this.
grad school.
No, you keep on doing this, and eventually the silver linings will become
Cumulus nimbus clouds?
cumulus nimbuses. I don't know. I want to just thank you. I am grateful to you, Heather Lofthouse, for being such a terrific partner here.
Robert Reich,
Really.
partner in policy.
Yes, and I'm also grateful to all of you out there. And,
You're here.
And I just, you know, your ability to continue to fight. Now, I know that some of you the last 3 weeks have been angry and not just angry and defiant, but angry and depressed and angry and upset. And some of you have just let your cynicism take over. But listen to me. There are silver linings on this cloud. And we do have to fight. We have to fight to maintain our democracy. We have to fight to get a modicum of social justice. And we have to fight to protect the rights of women and people who are going to be ground up in this Trump universe. So it's not, and I want to say this very clearly, it's not a silver lining right now. But we've got to find what we can of encouragement. And again, thank you for joining us. Heather,
See you next week.
we'll see you next week.